You're watching Open Agenda. Here's your host, Mike Goldberg.
So let me be crystal clear, and I want there to be absolutely no misunderstanding about what I am saying. As the county executive of Wacomico County, I have never sent inappropriate photographs to a deputy, to a county employee, or to anyone else.
Welcome to Open Agenda on PAC 14. I'm your host, Mike Goldberg. I'm joined today by Joe Scafino of Salisbury and Trish Melvin of Fruitland.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, y'all. Today we're going to talk about this past week's primary election, particularly the sheriff's race and the implications and how it has affected races outside of the sheriff's office, and as well as the allegations of inappropriate photos of the county executive being held and distributed by a sheriff's deputy, perhaps. So we're going to give you the facts, and after we do a rundown of the facts, in our third segment, we'll give you some opinions and a little bit of analysis. You're watching Open Agenda. Welcome back to Open Agenda, and the topic today, of course, is the inappropriate photos that seem to have originated from the county executive, Julie Giordano, and the distribution of those photos, possibly to a sheriff's deputy. The time frame on this goes back several years, at least 3 years.
Mr. Benson has prepared for the council, recognizing the fact that there were comments today, and we have questions and comments that all of us have fielded over the last several weeks. And I think it's appropriate for the public as a whole to recognize what the council's position is in reference to the recent news items that have been out there. Thank you, Mr. Benson.
In preparation for today's meeting and requests that council investigate the incident between the county executive and the sheriff, I was asked to opine on the matter. To the extent I understand the facts surrounding this incident is from reading the letters online, that being the alleged letter sent by the county executive requesting an investigation and the letter sent by the sheriff in response. The executive letter alleges that a sheriff's deputy was showing or distributing nude photos of the executive. It further alleges this constituted a criminal violation relating to revenge porn, which should be investigated. The response from Sheriff Luce indicated that he had been shown the alleged nude photos by one of his deputies in a private setting. He further stated that if the executive wanted an investigation, that such an investigation would by necessity result in the executive's personal and county cell phone being taken and reviewed to determine if either would show that those photos were used to send the nude photos. In his response, the sheriff further indicated a willingness to investigate, to request an investigation, but counseled the executive that the investigation may not have the results the executive wanted. As a result of the exchange of letters, it's my understanding the executive did not renew or continue her request for an investigation. The initial issue is whether sending nude photos is a crime in Maryland. From my understanding, sending nude photos to a consenting adult is likely not a criminal offense in Maryland. The issue in this instance is whether the person that received the photo was a consulting adult. We, the council in this case, has no way to answer that question. The second issue is whether the allegation of revenge porn. In Maryland, the crime of revenge porn has several elements, including the knowing distribution of intimate content. That distribution must be done with a specific intent to harm, harass, intimidate, threaten, or coerce the other person. The distribution must be without consent, and the alleged victim must have had a reasonable expectation of privacy that the image would remain private. If the victim were found to have sent the image, it is doubtful the victim would have an expectation of privacy. The only investigation I believe the county council would be authorized to undertake would be to determine if county equipment was used to transmit pornographic materials. To conduct the investigation, the council would need to be prepared to issue subpoena for the executive's county phone or computer and potentially hire a forensic expert to analyze the equipment. It must be presumed that if such images ever existed on the equipment, that they would long ago have been deleted, or the phone would have been changed and the original phone would have been destroyed. If the executive did not voluntarily surrender her phone or computer for examination, the council would need to sue to have its subpoena enforced. It is not the county council's role to investigate or pursue criminal charges. At this time, the allegations have not resulted in the filing of criminal charges, much less a conviction for either a felony or a crime of moral turpitude.
The sheriff, Mike Lewis, had viewed those photos but was never in possession of them. This came to the attention of the county executive that the photos were out in the public sphere, and it started to get ugly. As of 2 weeks ago, WBFF television in Baltimore, Fox 45, had done quite a blockbuster story on the release of these photos, the existence of the photos, and that resulted in a response from the county executive at a press conference.
I just obviously wanted to address, what has been put out in the news this morning. And I'm sitting here today because I am absolutely disgusted about what was published and circulated in the media. And frankly, I am angry.
Joe, could you kind of bring us up to date on what those back and forth letters between the county executive and Sheriff Lewis were all about?
Well, my understanding of the situation was Sheriff Lewis was shown these photographs on a phone by a sheriff's deputy. So the sheriff sent a letter to the county executive asking her, please refrain from, it doesn't look good.
And that letter goes back to September 12th, 2024, so it's almost 2 years ago.
Right. Then the sheriff, and the funny thing is it was on county letterhead, which was a little unusual. So the sheriff sent back on county sheriff letterhead, responding to her and explaining, well, let me back up. In the county executive's letter to the sheriff, she pretty much demanded an investigation into how and these things came into possession, how they were distributed. So the sheriff responded, that's fine, but our office can't do that. It would have to be somebody from the state level, and they're going to want to see your phone, your computer. They're going to go through everything. Yeah. And that was the last we heard about any request for an investigation, as far as I've seen reported.
Well, the county executive did request at that time in her September 12th letter to Sheriff Mike Lewis, and the sheriff then responded to that. Are you familiar with the responses, Trish? Can you bring us up to date?
It's my understanding that, these pictures may have themselves been taken before Ms. Giordano was in office.
So let me be crystal clear, and I want there to be absolutely no misunderstanding about what I am saying. As the county executive of Wacomico County, I have never sent inappropriate photographs to a deputy, to a county employee, or to anyone else. Because as county executive, I have never sent them. And as county executive, I have never sent inappropriate photographs to a deputy or to anybody else.
She actually said, I've never given these photos as county executive.
Okay. From what I have seen and heard that from Sheriff Lewis's responses, why would Sheriff Lewis respond if there were no pictures? And why would it become an issue to withhold these pictures and a threat of lawsuits if there are no pictures? That doesn't coincide for me with the truth.
Well, it seemed to me that in the county executive's letter to Mike Lewis that she basically admitted to their existence. She did not do an effective denial of the existence of the salacious photos. And upon the response being received by the county executive from Sheriff Lewis, in which he stated, if you want an investigation, we can do it, but it's going to be done by the Maryland State Police or the state prosecutor. And then all of the electronic records on phones and computers and elsewhere would be subject to forensic analysis. And then she no longer pushed for an investigation to be conducted, and that seemed rather odd. What do you think?
Well, I think because we all know that Sheriff Lewis knows the laws on these matters inside and out, and I don't know why you would want to go against his statements. He's not going to make stuff up and on county letterhead, sheriff letterhead, to respond.
He certainly would have left himself exposed to some civil liability if he were making this up.
Yeah.
So suggesting that the sheriff lied about this seems implausible.
Implausible.
To me. I mean, the WBFF Spotlight on Maryland, a show produced by WBFF Channel 45 in Baltimore, had discussed the existence of these photos, and the county attorney, Andrew Illuminati, would not comply with the Public Information Act request that had been submitted. And the Public Information Act request was for the back and forth letters between Giordano and Sheriff Lewis.
Just the letters.
Just the letters. It wasn't necessarily requesting the
photos.
the salacious photos.
Well, he needs those. Yeah, it's almost irrelevant, the photos.
But the PIA request was denied, by the county attorney because there was no public interest at that point in time.
Because it was a personal matter.
It was a personal matter, and but that changed. That changed on June the 10th when County Executive Giordano conducted a press conference. Trish, you want to talk about what happened there?
Executive Giordano had a press conference on June 10th, in which she vehemently stated that the photos do not exist.
For the last 3 years, I have been forced to address the same false allegations over and over again. So let me be crystal clear, and I want there to be absolutely no misunderstanding about what I am saying. As the county executive of Wacomico County, I have never sent inappropriate photographs to a deputy, to a county employee, or to anyone else. I never have. I never would, period. These allegations are completely false. They are not based on facts. They are not supported by evidence. They are nothing more than a deliberate attack on my character, my integrity, and my reputation. And what makes this even more outrageous is that the story today was supposedly about letters. Yet the entire story became a vehicle to resurrect years-old rumors about alleged photos that have never surfaced because they do not exist. Let's be honest about what happened here. The letters were simply the excuse. They were the hook. They were the masquerade used to drag these false accusations back into the public eye for one purpose: to damage me politically and personally. This is fake news at its finest.
So that's the first time I've heard Fox News called fake news. And just flat out denials, and no questions were accepted. So it leaves a lot of questions on the table.
When she was elected a county executive, she specifically requested a particular sheriff's deputy to be her chauffeur. She made that request to Sheriff Lewis.
But we don't know who that deputy sheriff is who was in possession. Right now, all we can do is
That's what I'm
speculate
saying. Exactly.
as to who that was. But I think we should also, be certain to point out here that Sheriff Lewis was never in possession of those photos, if they exist. He stated that he was shown those photos by the deputy, but he does not have them. Therefore, he cannot produce them. And he seems to be he may not be empowered to demand that the deputy relinquish those photos to him. That may just
I don't know why he would.
open
Yeah.
up a can of worms.
Exactly.
I'm sure the sheriff and the deputy are fully aware of the implications of transmitting this material. That's why it wasn't done.
A lot of people are asking, why is this even important? It's her
Right.
personal life. Sure, we all are entitled to our privacy, and I'm not going to pass judgment on how somebody behaves. But do you think that this kind of conduct is appropriate for the leader of the county, for the individual who holds the highest position in the county?
Well, the standards in this country are in the toilet. I mean, we have a president right now who's been convicted of sexually assaulting a woman. He's bragged on TV grabbing women by their private parts. So the standards have just dropped.
Well, the standards may have dropped during the Clinton administration too, with Monica Lewinsky.
Exactly. So I mean, you just look at all these Congress people who've had, sexual things that the average person would look down upon. But now it's, like I said, standards are down.
Well, I think the sheriff's department has a better grasp on the legal implications, because when the executive went out in a press conference to deny everything, she lost the presumption of innocence or the presumptions of privacy, and that's what triggered Mr. Illuminati to release the letter. He was legally
He had no
obligated to do
choice at
so.
that point. He
Yeah.
could have lost his law license
Right.
had he failed to comply, because it was now in the public sphere. There was a news article. She gave a response to that news article. And if she had not done that press conference, I firmly believe that this would not be out there. They
Right.
100%.
Yep.
100%.
I agree.
And so she, in many ways, brought this problem on herself. If the photos exist and if they were provided to a deputy, that's on her, because by all accounts, these are selfies. As she pretty much admitted, these are selfies. Nobody else took those photos.
Right.
She took those photos. And if they were on her phone, then she's the only one, unless her phone
government
was
phone?
hacked.
On her government phone?
We don't know the answer to that.
Well, again, if in fact, as she said, it never happened as county executive,
Okay.
it would be on a personal phone.
Got it.
Well, that would stand to reason.
Yeah.
And then at the press conference, she was very, very angry, but she was very concerned about the impact on her family, on her mother and father, on her sister, on her son. But
It's too late.
Too
late at that point.
She's the one who engaged in the behaviors. So who do you blame but yourself for doing that? So I feel badly for her family, of course.
Terrible. It might have died quietly without the press conference, the whole subject.
And it was interesting that she did not accept any questions at the end of the press conference. Now, a couple of people that I know shouted out some questions.
Mr. Giordano, you stated that as county executive, none of these photos were distributed. Did you distribute them before you were county executive? Calling Sheriff Lewis and WBFF liars?
And she simply left the room because the questions were very pointed. When it was pointed out to her that you stated in the press conference, this happened. I never did this as county executive. So she was asked, did it happen when you were not county executive? Yep. And are you calling Sheriff Lewis a liar? Are you calling WBFF TV a liar? And she and her entourage kept on walking, and they refused to answer any questions.
Well, a strong implication from her was that the sheriff is lying.
I find it implausible that the sheriff would lie about something
I agree.
like this.
I agree.
Agree.
The exposure to civil liability would simply be too great, and it would be too easy to be caught in that lie. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, that's the background, and I think in our next segment we'll discuss some of the implications of this politically and how it perhaps impacted this past week's election, primary election. So, can y'all stick around? We'll talk some more.
Yep.
Okay, terrific. We'll be right back. You're watching Open Agenda on PAC 14. Welcome back to Open Agenda. Still here with Joe Scafino from Salisbury and Trish Melvin of Fruitland. Well, now we've given you the facts of what happened over the course of the last couple of years with respect to the inappropriate photos that are alleged to be circulating, inappropriate photos of the county executive. Now, there are some political implications. That's pretty clear. This past week, of course, we had the primary elections, and there was, frankly, a few surprises there. Now, any numbers that we throw out at you at this point are unofficial numbers as of June 25th. But it's rather clear that many Republican voters chose to leave the county executive's ballot naked. And this was manifested by the fact that the combined votes for sheriff between Scott Hamilton, who challenged Mike Lewis for the Republican nomination, but between the two, they got about 5,600 votes. Is that correct?
Yep.
And interestingly, Julie Giordano, the county executive, only got 4,200 votes. So she actually received 1,400 fewer Republican votes in the primary than the two combined sheriff candidates. Joe, what does that tell us?
That tells me a lot. Okay. It's interesting that the county executive and delegate Barry Beecham both went in heavy for Scott Hamilton. Scott Hamilton only got 29% of the vote. So what does that do to the credibility of Giordano and Beecham now? We've got 25% of the county voters are registered independent. So how are they looking at this as far as, wow, even their own party is abandoning her? And they're not inclined to go either way. They're gonna look. Independent voters, like myself, are more inclined to vote for the quality of the person than the party. We're not interested in the team so much as the candidate. So I think those 25% independent voters are going to have a large say in the November election.
Clearly, Sheriff Lewis won overwhelmingly against the challenger, Scott Hamilton. Do you feel, Trish, that this is a reflection on the perspective of Republican voters regarding County Executive Giordano? Was this reflective of their distaste or unwillingness to move forward with her?
I can't think of any other way to explain this gap of 1,400 voters who are registered Republicans that chose not to vote for Ms. Giordano. Her political prognostications maybe fell short, and that does not even take into account the independent voters who, they're not part of the Republican Party. And even within the Republican Party, it's those that lean more towards the right that probably voted for her. I would tend to think the independent voters, which is 25%, as you said, they probably break the other direction.
It's a little hard to read in Wicomico County because I would think that voters who lean strongly to the right, and when they see this type of behavior coming from a county executive, that you'd think that they would find that to be very distasteful, that it's really contrary to some of their most fundamental religious beliefs.
Well, President Trump's election blows that theory out of the water.
And well, of course, again, we go back to Bill Clinton, and there is plenty of people on the left who voted for Bill Clinton.
I agree.
But this leads me to believe that maybe these type of behaviors are not that important to the American people anymore.
That's what I'm saying. Standards have gone down the drain.
They seem to be. And that's unfortunate because from where I sit, and this is just my opinion, that you have to have respect, not for the individual, but for the office.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there has to be a moral authority for leadership. People are going to follow somebody who behaves in an ethical and a moral manner, because it's consistent with the gravity of whatever that office is, particularly the chief executive of a county. I've heard some people say that it really doesn't matter, but can you see yourselves following a leader whom has behaved in a manner that's embarrassing?
Well, I think that personal matters aside, if somebody is in an elected position, county executive, president, he's not just any person and should be held to a higher standard. Whether it's a personal matter or not, I would expect an office holder to be judged more harshly.
Well, there was just an article in yesterday or today. A school board member in a surrounding county was arrested for drunk driving. 0.21. He was the school board president.
That's sad.
Now,
At least he wasn't the bus driver.
yeah. So a similar situation had occurred somewhere else, and that person was forced to resign. And their speculation is this person may be forced to resign also. You're president of the school board. You got all these kids and parents, and you do something like that. You're in a fishbowl. When you're in politics, you're in a fishbowl, and
You better be aware of it.
yeah, and you have to raise your standards.
Yes.
Just because of the situation.
I think that a lot of voters are becoming increasingly concerned about the behaviors of the county executive. This is not the first scandal that she's been involved in the 3.5 years. This is just one of several. We have Safari at the Quarry. We have the hiring of Matt Leitzel as Deputy Director of Administration, which he was hired for without the county council's advice and consent as required by the charter. I mean, there's been a long series. Do either of y'all feel that because of this series of scandals that her political capital is now becoming somewhat diminished?
Oh, absolutely. In my opinion, yes. You mentioned you went back, but if we look at just the last few weeks, the last few council meetings, the auditor, all right, the county executive, an auditor is there to help you run a tight ship, and they're not there to criticize and to tear it down. But the county executive has taken the fact that her branch is being audited, she's taken it personally. She attacked in writing the auditor and has been uncooperative.
And most importantly, she did not provide the documents requested by the auditor.
Correct.
As required by
Right.
the county charter.
Right. And the two big issues were the gift cards by the LBM and the grant money. There was no accounting for how that grant money was spent. The auditor can't do her job. So what is the county executive trying to hide, if anything? I mean,
Well, we also saw the same lack of cooperation with the audit for Safari at the Quarry.
correct.
Which is still not available.
It is still not available.
Okay.
So what do you think the implications are for the future here? Trish, how do you think this is going to wind up come Election Day?
We're talking about public money, and I don't think that the taxpayers, if they were aware of this, which in the county, which probably most of them aren't, of how their money is not audited, it's a black hole. We don't know what's being spent. If you look at the gift cards, that raises a lot of questions. But I don't know the details,
Right.
Perhaps the audit would prove that everything is on the up and up.
Do you think that the collective weight of these various scandals over the last 3 years are going to have an impact? Could this possibly help the Democrat challenger for county executive come November?
Well, it absolutely should if the voters are paying attention. They should.
I mean, the fact that 1,400 Republicans left that ballot space naked tells you a lot.
It seems to make quite a statement by Republicans. I would have
Right.
to agree. Well, Wish we had more time. We could talk about this for hours, but I think we're about out of time. So thank you both for being here today. And thank you all for watching Open Agenda. And we'll be back soon with another episode.
Thank you for voting. Have you met the scary lady with the clipboard?